We're going to talk today about renovation costs, and not so much about the nitty-gritty details of, how much does, a 4040 window cost to replace. We're not going to talk so much about the exact details of very specific things. Hey, Nandish, good to see you, and glad that you could jump on here. We're talking today about the renovation costs of a project and how to determine what those costs are going to be. And I want to show you guys something that is, I think you're going to really enjoy this and like this. Hopefully you get a lot of value out of it. If you do, then please make sure you bump this to somebody else. Put it on there. Juan, good to see you. The idea of how to calculate your renovation costs for a flip or even just for a light rehab, it can be very, very intimidating if you are not a construction person. It can be intimidating even if you are a construction person. I see Lou here. Sister Lou, you want to jump on, or you want me to bring you on here? You might have accidentally hit the button. We might just pull you on here in a minute. But the cost of a renovation project, obviously it's a huge part of deciding whether or not you have a deal, right? So we all know the basics of, find the ARV, take out your renovation costs, your holding costs. That's okay, Lou. And figure those things out. Hey, Tom, if you did your ARV, you've got your renovation costs, you've got the cost of, what's it going to cost to hold it? And by the way, if you're just a wholesaler, you should know these things too. You should really understand that it's important to know what it looks like to the end buyer, right? Your flipper on the back end, they want to know that, they're looking at a lot more stuff. I think sometimes wholesalers forget that there's a lot more involved. A wholesaler kind of looks at it like, well, is it, what's the purchase price and what can I sell it for? And then you kind of just figure, well, there's got to be some kind of cushion in there. There's a lot involved for a flipper. And by the way, if any of you have ever done a flip, like you're either done one or you're doing one, like Anthony is, like Donna Klein is. If you've ever done a flip personally, or you've worked on one with somebody else, why don't you just put it in there and just say flip in the chat, so we kind of know, like say I flip or I flipped. Yes, I've done a flip before. I'd like to know how many folks on the chat today have actually ever done a flip, because obviously we have a lot of wholesalers. We got some people that are buy and holders, but for someone who's actually flipped a house, if you are on the video right now, if you're watching, or maybe you're watching later, just put it in the comments, say flip, something like that, because I want to know, from the point of view of the people who have a little bit of experience in this area, currently flipping. Anthony, obviously, and he's right around the corner of being finished. So you guys watch for his invite for next Wednesday. And he's going to invite everybody out to an open house on his project. Jeff says, not currently, but interested in the future. So if you're interested in flipping, if you've done a flip, even if you're just a wholesaler, you need to know what the cost of the renovation are going to be. And like I said a few minutes ago, if you've never done a construction project, if you've never actually been involved in the purchasing and the hiring and the doing of a project, really of any magnitude, it can be very, very difficult to know if you've actually got a deal or not, or if this is, you see all the time that wholesalers are putting numbers out there like, renovation costs, $15,000, or $50,000. And the question comes up is like, how did you figure that out? Where did you get that number from? And sometimes people think, and by the way, there's two different, just like everything, right? Everything in life, there's always a balance, There's two different schools of thought here, or two different mistakes rather. Hey, Marshall, good to see you. The two different mistakes that people make is, number one, not estimating high enough, right? So they don't actually figure out anywhere close to, and wholesalers do this all the time, right? Why? Because you want to make the deal look appealing to your end buyer. Just so you know, an end buyer, if they're a real buyer, they're going to do their due diligence. They're going to know what the costs are going to be. So it helps for you to know these things too, right? But then the other side of the equation is you have someone who they knuckle down so close on, they want to know like down to the dollar and cents what it's going to cost to do renovation. And you can waste a lot of time trying to figure out what a deal is. And you can also, really worry yourself to death on something that's not necessary. In case you don't know, Luz, she's done some flips. she's you're not flipped out. You've done some flips, but she's being a little more cautious. Obviously, Christopher says he's wanting to. He's doing wholesaling. He's wanting to know more and wanting to connect. Christopher, it's a great group to be a part of. I know that you recently joined, so thanks for being here. Thanks for jumping on the video today. Guys, make sure you reach out and say hi to Christopher, and we're looking forward to seeing him at the meetup coming up a week from this Thursday. So the 25th is our next meetup. But for today's topic, how do you calculate these costs? How do you know if you've really kind of done your numbers, whether you're a wholesaler or whether you're the flipper? How do you know if you've actually gotten a good deal? There's a simple formula that you can use. I'm going to show you that in a minute. But before I show you the formula, and some of you already know this. I know this is old hat for some of you, but before we show you the formula, I want to tell you a little bit about my experience. I grew up in a construction household. So I was on the job site working with my dad since I was probably 7, 8 years old, doing residential construction. And we did ground up construction. We did renovation projects in Oregon. I've done projects in Oregon, Alaska, Florida, Idaho, Washington State. I've done projects in Africa, in Papua New Guinea, in Fiji. I've done some stuff in Vietnam. I've worked literally all over the world and had a lot of involvement in projects. And what's really cool about that is not only do I get to see how people do things in different areas of the world, but it's also amazing how differently things can be done from, say, like the state of Alaska down to the state of Florida, right? Every region has its own unique factors. And sometimes we can kind of factor in that stuff when we think about it, and it becomes almost like there's no way I could possibly know what the costs are going to be to fix up this house, that I'm looking at. And I want to tell you that, hey, Matt, good to see you, man. I want to tell you that the way you calculate these costs is not as complicated as sometimes people make it out to be. I'm going to show you that. I'm going to prove it to you from a real life case deal that we did. Someone who's got access to their computer or something, you're not going to mess yourself up or boot yourself off. Somebody pull up an address, look it up on Zillow. It's 19700 19700 Southwest Blanton, Blanton. Who's going to do that for me? Somebody pull that property up. 19700 Southwest Blanton Street, and that's here in Beaverton. It might come up as a Loa. Hey, Michelle, good to see you. Anybody got that pulled up here? 19700 Southwest Blanton. This is a property that I flipped a couple years ago, just right down the street here from my office in Hillsboro. I want to make sure that you guys are knowing. I'm actually going to show you the numbers that I had from this particular property, my actual numbers. I've got them right here in front of me, and I'm going to read some of these things off. But somebody make sure that I don't see anybody on the chat. Anybody pull that up yet? 19700 Southwest Blanton Street in Beaverton. If you can, somebody could pull that up and just let me know I've got it, because I want to make sure that that you are looking at. You can see on Zillow, you can see the pictures of the finished product. Obviously, we listed it, sold it. Hey, Francisco. Somebody's got that there, so Francisco's got it. Okay, this is a property that we just we did a couple years ago. Actually, my dad and I worked on this. So my dad and I worked on this together. And here's what we did. So being a construction guy, obviously I got my clipboard, right? So I go on a job site, I got my clipboard, I got my notepad. Thanks, by the way, Kyler, for fixing the hinge. But I got my clipboard, I got my notepad, and I want to start, just kind of going through, and I'm looking through the house. I'm going through the walkthrough. Hey, thanks, Bob. So I'm going through this property, and I'm basically, with my dad and I, construction people. That's basically, we don't know a whole lot, but we know a little bit about construction. So we're writing down what we think. This is our first walkthrough of the property before we purchase it. We're writing down what we think the property is going to take, the work that needs to be done on it is going to actually take. So here's my list. I literally just copy and pasted this list. It's right here in front of me. I'm going to read it off to you guys. So I had repair estimates that we just kind of scratched down, and you'll notice that all these are kind of round, easy numbers. Obviously, we're not going down to the dollar and cents yet, but I've got replace the windows, $3,000, siding, $5,000, roof, $8,000, garage door, $1,500. Adding an additional bathroom. Now, these are my costs, right? This is kind of what I figured, but I always make sure I bump the numbers up. I put in $4,000 bathroom remodel for the other bathroom, $2,500. Now, this is a couple years ago. And obviously these are some of my costs, but painting, $4,000, trim, $1,500, kitchen, $12,000, appliances, $2,500, floor repair, $3,500, floor covering. So the floor repair, by the way, is there was a bedroom in this house. It's not going to show it if some of you are pulling up the address of this house. If you guys are just jumping on, this is a house that we renovated a couple years ago, just down the street in Aloha. But address is 19700 Southwest Blanton. You can pull it up and look at it while I'm talking if you want to. But you can see the finished product of what we did after we flipped it and sold it. But when we first bought it, there was one of the bedrooms where literally from you walk in the bedroom door and the entire floor was kind of caved in. It was just you could tell something had happened where the floor was just there was no floor, the entire joist and everything. So Tyler says, are these just for repairs, or are you adding in like outdated stuff? Yeah, so this is like a full, this is in my mind, Tyler, if you pull up that address, 19700 Southwest Blanton, these are you'll see the pictures of the finished product of the flip that we did. And so in my mind, as I'm running through these numbers, that's what you're going to see if you pull up that address on Zillow, 19700 Southwest Blanton. If you pull that up, you're going to see it. Maybe somebody type it in the chat, 19700 Southwest Blanton, so everybody can see it. But if you pull that up, you'll see that's what I had in mind. So I kind of was thinking, okay, I know I need to do floors. Again, a flip, a lot of these things can be adjusted based on the area that you're doing this in. So obviously some things are going to be a lot more fine-tuned for certain neighborhoods. Hey, Robert, are you in Italy right now? Thanks, Kyler. You got the address there. Robert Harden is joining from Italy. Who knows what time it is there? But for this address, 19700, Kyler's got it in the chat. If you pull that up, you'll see the pictures of the finished product. This is a property that we flipped a couple years ago, my dad and I. And so in that we're looking in that neighborhood, right? So we're putting together an idea of what it's going to cost to renovate this house based on what we think this property should look like when it's all finished. And that, of course, is based on the neighborhood that it's in. So, oh, perfect. Thanks, Carlos. You got the actual link there. If you guys want to just click that link. I don't know why I didn't think of that. So there's a link there. You guys can check this out. But you can see it's obviously not like a super high-end neighborhood. So it's not like we did like the ultimate fine finishes. So I was just going through a list, and that my dad and I, when we first walked through the property, we had our clipboards, we had our pens, we're just walking around. Took about 30 minutes, walk around, and the two of us talking. Not that you have to have somebody there, but we're just talking back and forth. And we figured, the windows, the siding, the roof, the garage, we just wrote down a number, right next to each of those, each one of those particular tasks or details that needed to be done to this particular house. We wrote down a number, right? Just kind of based on our construction experience. And if you're just joining, we're not saying you have to have construction experience to do what we're going to tell you about, okay? So I want to make sure you don't get freaked out. You don't have to have construction experience to be able to figure out what the renovation costs are going to be. Believe it or not. I'm just telling you from a guy who's been in construction most of my life. This is a property that we walked through together, and my dad and I, and we kind of just figured, the garage door needs to be replaced. We need to add a bathroom. We need to repair the floors in this one room, which means we had to put in new floor joists, figure out why it collapsed. It was all caved in the one room. Then we have a cost for floor coverings. Then we had a furnace, putting in a new furnace. We had, I have all these numbers here in front of me based on my original walkthrough. We have the drywall repairs. We have plumbing repairs, just basic stuff. And then landscape, and then electric. And then I had a little question mark for insulation. Did it need insulation? It turns out it did, because at the time I didn't climb in the attic. So here's what I want you to know. When my dad and I went through and did this walkthrough on this property with the construction experience that we have, like we're pretty, we kind of know what we're doing when it comes to residential construction. I've been doing this my entire life. My wife comes from a contractor's family, Fine Custom Homes in Idaho. So this is pretty much the one thing I can say. I kind of know what I'm doing when it comes to this stuff. Bob says he bought it for $240,000. I believe that is, that was the purchase price. We had bought it for $240,000. My memory doesn't go back that far, and I don't have the documents in front of me, but if that's what you're finding out, then that's what we bought it for. So we went through, got all of our figures together, and based on our experience, based on what we did our initial walkthrough, we came up with a figure. This is a round figure of $65,000 to renovate this property to get it in the condition that you see it on. So if you're there and you're looking, we figured it's about $65,000 to get the property into the condition that you see it there on the on the link. So windows, siding, roof, I mean, this is everything, right? This is looking at it from the construction guy's point of view. Brand new kitchen, you know, add a bathroom even. We came up with $65,000. Now, here's where we're going to start getting into where you don't have to have construction experience to be able to come up with the same number we did. And it's based on a very simple formula. Somebody type in the chat, how many square feet are in this house? How many square feet are in this house? So I'm gonna write a couple things down. Somebody write that on there, but we're looking at calculating renovation costs, okay? It's our Tuesday talk subject. By the way, I don't know if, oh man, maybe I need to have Kyler come in here and show me how to flip this thing around. Kyler, maybe you can come in and help me. Somebody help me with this technical stuff. It might be too late since I already started the video, but is it backwards on you guys' screen? Okay, thank you, 1,287 square feet, that's correct. 1,287 square feet, that is correct. That's what it was when we bought it. That's what it was when we sold it. So we have our, here's our main man. Is it possible to do this while we're doing live? Can we fix it? If we can't, then I'll scratch the whiteboard. You guys just run the numbers on your own notepad. So let's see here. Hey, look at that. Hey, show yourself. Look at this guy right here. This is why everybody needs an office nerd. Somebody who knows what they're doing when it comes to this.
Big ring, many wrinkles.
All right, thank you, Kyler. Okay, so we got our renovation costs. It's 1,287 square feet. Bob, I don't think it was 1,527. I don't know why PropStream says that. I think it was 12. It's kind of a smaller house. So when I ran through all the numbers with my dad, construction guys, we came up with a cost of renovation, just a ballpark of $65,000. Now, why is that important? Why do we need to know that? Because we're looking at this from the angle of, can we afford to buy this thing, to pay the interest on the hard money, to do the repairs, to pay the realtor, to have a cushion for surprises? All those things matter, right? You have to figure all that stuff in, and the renovation costs are a huge, huge part of this. We got to know, can we buy it, fix it, hold it, market it, sell it, and still make money, right? That's the whole idea of flipping in a nutshell. So we wanted to know if we got this right. So we had $65,000. Now, what I want to show you, and this is something, every one of you can take this and run with it on any property you're looking at. And I know that it's going to sound like, oh, it's way too simple. But there's kind of a way you can analyze a property, and I like to use the categories. Some of you already know what I'm going to do, but just bear with me, right? You have a grade, you have a B grade, and you have a C grade renovation, okay? So anytime you're looking at any property, start looking at it from the point of view of what's it going to cost me to fix this thing up, and automatically just kind of assess or analyze the property based on, is it an A, B, or C grade renovation? A grade, in my opinion, would be something that basically needs paint, right? It needs some cleanup. Obviously, every one of these properties is going to need some cleanup. It needs paint, it needs cleanup. It might need some basic things, like maybe there's a shower door in one of the bathrooms that needs to be replaced. So you have obviously some repairs that need to be done, but if it's an A grade renovation, so it doesn't need a lot. Like, in other words, there's probably somebody living in a property right now. If it's an A grade property, a renovation, it probably has someone living in it right now, or someone just moved out of it, or if it's got a tenant. So if it's an A grade, I figure this. I figure I'm going to take my square footage, okay? So how many square feet is it? In this case, for our example property, we had how many? 1,287 square feet. Okay, we had 1,287 square feet for our subject property. The link is in the chat if you guys want to go check it out. And I take my square footage and I use a multiplier. This is what I do, of $30 a square foot. So that's an A grade renovation. Now this is, I know some of you are already thinking it's way too simplistic. Just bear with me, okay? Because I want to show you this actually works pretty well. $30 a square foot to renovate this house if it had been the one that we're talking about, 19700 Southwest Blanton. If it had just basically needed like some paint and just some basic repairs, clean up. If I figure as a buyer, as a flipper, or as a wholesaler that's going to market to flippers, if I figured $38,610, right? That's $1,287 times $30 a square foot equals, somebody check me on this, $38,610 is my renovation costs. Now, obviously, some properties are going to not need that much, but I figure if I use this as my basis on the low end, if it costs less than this, then I just made more money, right? But if I figure it's a pretty good house, but it definitely needs some stuff. What am I gonna? Thanks, Kyler. What am I going to have to pay to get this thing renovated? If I figured I'm gonna buy this thing and then put another almost $40,000 into it, then I'm definitely playing in a safe zone, right? In other words, I might be able to get this done for $20,000. I might be able to get this thing done for $30,000, but I know that I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna probably put about $38,000 into it if it's an A grade renovation. And some of you are going to come in and say, well, I like to do it, $15 a square foot. I like to do $20 a square foot. I'm not necessarily saying that this is the absolute rule, but what I am saying is that you can get your numbers really, really close if you use this formula. $30 a square foot will get a lot done in a house, and you might even have some leftover money to cushion some things. But if you don't figure for at least, in my estimation in the Portland area, if you don't figure for at least about $30,000, there's a really good chance that you're going to end up paying more than you thought you would when it comes down time to actually get the thing, closed out. You're going to look at your numbers, you're going to go, wow, that was way more than I thought it was. So $30 a square foot is basic. That's A grade. Now, next, for a B grade, and this is what we actually ended up having for the house that I'm talking about, 19700 Southwest Blanton. This was kind of more of a B grade, and it came out to about $50 a square foot, okay? So take your square footage, 1,287, multiply that times $50, and somebody give me, what is that number? Somebody put it in the chat. What is that number? 1,287 square feet, use the multiplier of $50 a square foot. What does that number come out to? Somebody do some math real quick. You guys, let me know if you're still here. Is this helping at all? Give me a thumbs up, give me a something. Somebody give me that number. I want to know what the cost was at $50 a square foot. Anybody? You guys with me still? Somebody's typing it up. Somebody's, running all their fingers and toes and everything. Thank you, Nandish. That's exactly what I have. I have 64,000. Bob, thank you guys. It's really close, Bob, but I had $64,350. Now, remember what I told you when my dad and I went through it with our clipboard, right? And we as construction guys walked through and did all of our calculations. We figured that the renovation cost, round ballpark number, was going to be $65,000, okay? And so look at this B grade estimation, right? You don't have to go to estimator school. You don't have to have any construction experience at all. You can use these multipliers to get a really good idea of what the cost is going to be for your basic renovation. Basic renovation, $30 a square foot. You're safe, right? You just know you're going to be good. And by the way, let me say this. If you're a wholesaler and you throw out there that, and the property needs obviously some paint, it maybe needs some new flooring in the bathrooms, whatever. Francisco is asking, what makes it A grade, B grade, C grade? Okay, so great question. We kind of covered that starting off, but your A grade would be something that's really, really basic. So we're talking like, and again, try not to, some of you are going to trying to make this into a science. Listen, stop it. This is not a science. This is just a way to use some numbers to make it an estimation, right? An A grade would be, the way I look at it, it would be, every house needs paint, right? So you guys know you're not going to get into a house that it doesn't need paint. Okay, so it needs paint. It's going to need most likely some flooring, either replaced in some bedrooms, or it's going to need to be completely taken out. You're going to need flooring almost always. So paint, flooring, obviously cleanup. It might need some minor landscape. Maybe you got to, kind of go through the backyard. I'm talking about like a house that you are looking at, and if you were there and you're like, okay, I could, don't fall into analysis paralysis. That's right. Thank you, Nandish. So that's so true. And by the way, I'm guilty of this too, guys. So don't think I'm getting on to you. But I'm just saying, I've learned over the years, like this stuff, we tend to overcomplicate this stuff big time. So if you're looking at it as an A-grade property, what are the renovation costs going to be on an A-grade property? $30 a square foot will cover a lot. It'll cover paint, it'll cover flooring, it'll cover basic cleanup, full cleanup, it'll cover basic landscaping. It'll cover a lot in the sense that just about any property that you're looking at, if you're like, you know what, I would move into this property right now if we just replace that flooring and put some paint on it, right? Anthony says minimum $50,000 renovation. That's fairly true for just about any property in the Portland market. But I've done deals, guys, before. I've done one in Forest Grove. I've done one out in Scappoose. I've done one, again, these are some of the outlying areas. I get it. But I've done some projects in Oregon City where we were able to get a lot done for this A-grade estimation. $30 a square foot will go a long way for a house that basically has just been lived in. It's been somewhat taken care of, but maybe it was a rental. Someone's just not really, it's not like, the floors need to be replaced, right? Obviously, there's a hole in the bathroom where the door handle, every bathroom has a hole behind the door, right? Where the door stop fell off and everyone just kept on opening it, and it's got a hole about that big around, where the doorknob punched a hole in the sheetrock. So we're talking about basic renovation is an A grade. B grade is a little more intense. So like I said, we went through the list, and I've got on my list, I've got the list, I just literally copied and pasted it. I've got on that list here. I think I can just go ahead and show you guys this. So there's my renovation list. This is the list that I made on, I use Evernote. I just walked through this with my dad, and I said, hey, let's walk through this thing together and figure out what our numbers are going to be. So I've got windows, I've got siding, I've got a new roof, I've got garage door. This is what I would say is B grade, right? Bathroom addition, okay, you might have that on a B grade. The bathroom remodel, the other bathroom, we got to fix that thing up. Paint, trim. So some of you may be looking at those numbers going, I don't know if I could do anything. Remember, this is a couple years ago, and remember, I do have a little bit of experience, so we're gonna make a little bit of a caveat here in a minute. But B grade renovation is pretty much everything that's there needs to either be fixed up or it needs to be replaced, okay? And so what we mean by that is you're going to have to do some work on a B grade that's a little more in depth, right? It's not just paint and carpet. We got to put in, you're going to replace, obviously, all the appliances. I would say that's true with an A grade as well. You almost always want to put in new appliances, right? But a B grade would be like, we're going to replace this whole kitchen. The whole kitchen's getting gutted. We're taking out all the cabinets. We're putting in new cabinets. We're putting in new countertops. We're putting in, this is a B grade. It's more of this property has potential, but we've got to do a lot of work. So with a B grade, using a multiplier of $50 a square foot, we came up with a number of $64,000. Some of you put it in the chat, $64,350. So the B grade renovation of $50 a square foot came up with $64,350, right? And remember, my estimate when I walked through this with a guy, with myself having construction experience, my dad, we came up with an estimate of $65,000, okay? So we're talking really, really close just by using a multiplier of the square footage times $50 a square foot. Is this making sense to anybody? I know we got some people that are just joining, some people that are dropping off, but if this makes sense to you and you understand the concept, now you may not agree with it, I get it, but if you understand the concept of you can use a multiplier of $30 a square foot, thank you guys, $50 a square foot for an A grade or a B grade, and you can come up really, really close to what the cost would be from the point of view of someone who's in the construction business. In other words, if some of you asked me to come out and say, John, I'm looking at this property, and I know you got some construction experience, would you come out there and look at this? Thanks, Tyler. Thanks, Francisco. You're saying, hey, would you come out there and look at this with me and just do a walkthrough? Guys, if I'm going out in that house and I see this thing needs paint, it needs some new flooring, you know, you might have to replace the light fixtures, right? Maybe the light fixtures are dated, right? You know, maybe you're going to fix a hole in the wall. If I can come out and look at a property like that, I'm gonna be using this multiplier. You know why? Because even as a guy who has a lot of construction experience, I have found this, that I can sit down there and I can detail every single item out like I did, you know, with something like this. I can write it all out, and I could be like, you know, really tuned in to what every detail item is going to be. Or I could just use the multiplier and say, if I figure $30 a square foot, I know I'm going to be in the safe zone on this house because it's an A grade property. If I walk in there, I'm like, man, this place needs a brand new kitchen. It's going to need a new bathroom. We've got to fix that huge hole in the floor in that back bedroom. There's a ton of, you know, sheetrock, you know, repairs. If I figure it's going to be a B grade renovation, I'm going to be using that multiplier of $50 a square foot. And like I showed you in the case study with the one we did here in Aloha, 19700, you guys can look it up. Southwest Blanton, 19700 Southwest Blanton. You can see the pictures of the finished product that we did. That property, our original estimate, I can show you right here, our original estimate. Okay, you see down at the bottom right there, right below my finger there? Okay, where is it? There we go. $65,000 is what I figured with my dad, both of us having construction experience. We figured it was going to be about $65,000 to fix this property up. Using the multiplier of $50 a square foot, we came up with the number of $64,350. So my question is, for those of you guys that are just joining us, if you, by the way, hey Derek, hey Josh, good to see you guys. If you're looking at a property and you don't have construction experience, but you know that you can use a multiplier that contractors, people with experience are using, then why wouldn't you just, instead of worrying about, you know, I don't know anything about construction. I don't know what it costs for a pound of nails. You know, I don't know what trim costs. You don't need to know all those things. You just need to know some basic multipliers, and you can come up with a really close, maybe, you know, very accurate, dead on calculation for just about any one of these properties that you're looking at. And you can go into your offer, your communication and negotiation with the seller or the end buyer, and you can be safe. Now listen, a lot of wholesalers do this all the time. They throw a property out there, say, hey, I got this property under contract, here's the buy price, here's the estimated ARV, and here's the renovation costs. And everybody just puts these numbers out there. $20,000 renovation. Okay, where'd you get that? Show me that. Is this an A grade renovation? Are you telling me this thing literally just probably needs paint and maybe some new light fixtures, the floors are in great shape? I would say, based on my experience in the Portland area, you want to go with at least $30 a square foot. Okay, if it's less than that, then great, you just made more money. But if you figure on $30 a square foot, you're going to be really close most time. If it's just an A grade, paint, lipstick. If it's a pretty more extensive renovation, you figure $50 a square foot. By the way, you can always bump that up. But I would say this: there's a C grade, and C grade is what I would call like a full gut job. Like, we're literally taking this house and we're bringing everything down to the floorboards. We're bringing everything down to the studs, all the sheetrock's coming off, all the insulation's coming out of the attic. The entire crawl space has to be, you know, maybe there's it's like an old post and beam, and there's work that needs to be done in the crawl space. There's work that needs to be done in the attic. By the way, how many of you know there's a difference between putting a new roof on with shingles and re-roofing and tearing off the entire roof, including all the sheeting? This one that we just listed here in Hillsboro, I had to take the roof down to the actual trusses because most of the sheeting had been saturated so long that there was black mold on the sheeting. We had to literally take everything down to the truss. That's a lot more extensive renovation or roof repair than just putting new shingles on, right? How many of you guys know that you can put new shingles on over the top of old shingles at least once, right? So you can have 2 layers. And the state of Oregon, obviously, there's some stipulations based on what area you're in, but you could put new shingles on top of an old roof. Don't even have to tear the old shingles off, right? I'm trying to help you guys understand that regardless of where you're at on your experience level with construction, you don't have to go into these conversations and looking at these properties completely blind. You can just use these basic multipliers. So if it's an A grade, $30. If it's B grade, $50 a square foot. If it's a total gut job, we're just tearing everything down to bare bones. About the only thing we're doing is leaving the shell of the house in place, right? And we're going to go with everything. I typically figure on $80 a square foot, okay? $80 a square foot for our subject property that we're talking about, the one that we flipped a couple years ago in Aloha here. $80 a square foot. What is that? Somebody who's still on here, put it in the chat. What is our square footage of this house? 1,289 square feet times the $80 a square foot number. What does that give us as far as a renovation cost? This is a Tuesday talk. We're talking, right? I want you guys to interact with me. I want to know that you're actually getting value out of this. So somebody put it in there. Say, if I was buying this property and I knew it needed a total gut job and we had to take this thing down to bare bones and maybe even repair the foundation, Bob says $102,960. That is correct. Bob, you get the prize. Francisco, great. Thank you guys, because what that's telling me is you're there, you're watching, and you're not just watching, but you're participating, because I want to make sure you get this. There's no point in me doing this on Tuesdays if it's not helping you, right? We all have stuff to do, but if you guys can understand that I can go into any property in the Portland market and I can just do a basic quick takeoff on what it's going to cost. If I go into this thing and I know this property that John has under contract and he's asking me to buy from him as an end buyer. Thanks, Bill. That thing's gonna need a total gut job. Everything's got to be fixed on that. Basically, the only thing we're gonna do is leave the shell intact, right? It's gonna cost at least $80 a square foot. That comes out to $102,960. That's a huge factor in your cost. Yeah, Nandish, he's still counting on his fingers. That's a huge cost for that you have to factor in when you're negotiating, because the seller says, well, this thing's worth $400,000, and when it's all fixed up and they're running $300,000, well, you buy that thing and fix it up, you're $102,000 into it, you're in the hole, right? I mean, I've been there before, and I'm trying to save you guys from having to do this. So it is not fun when you buy a property and you find out that there's a lot more work that you needed to do. It's also not, it kind of makes you look bad as a wholesaler if you're pitching properties out there to potential buyers, to your buyers list, and you're factoring in a renovation cost or a repair cost that's just totally unrealistic. Now, if you can use these numbers and say, hey, this is an A grade renovation, or this is a B grade renovation, or this is a C grade, man, this thing needs to be completely gutted. You know what's going to happen as a flipper, as someone on the back end that's going to be buying this thing? They're going to look at your deal and they're going to say, you know what? Bob actually really ran the numbers pretty close. Like, we have experience with those types of projects, and it looks like he's actually giving us some realistic numbers, right? So Carlos just jumping on, talking about the renovation costs, and we're talking about how you can use these figures. You can use for an A grade renovation, $30 a square foot, $50 a square foot, $80 a square foot, and it'll be very, very helpful for you to get at least a ballpark idea. Now, here's the question that maybe some of you are having. How much did it actually cost us to renovate this property on Blanton? So I gave you guys an address, 19700 Southwest Blanton, and it was one that we flipped a few years ago. I showed you my list, right? This is my initial walkthrough of the property. Here's what I figured is going to cost, about $65,000. We showed you how to use the calculation of about $50 a square foot for a B grade renovation, and showed you how I did that. It came out really close to what I originally estimated. How much did it actually cost us to do this project? I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I do remember this very clearly, that when we all got finished, the project, Bob says $75,800. Bob, how did you get that number? I'm guessing you just added on a percentage, and that's actually what you want to do. So Bob's on top of it today. You guys definitely get with Bob if you want someone to walk through and do your renovation estimations with you. We actually ended up putting a little bit more into this project than we initially estimated, and Bob's got it. He nailed it. 10% is always a good number to throw on top of. Some people say 15%. Again, I think it's all based on which number you use. But if you take your square footage, right? You take how many square feet is this property times your factors. So it's 30, 50, or 80. If you take one of those three, and then you multiply that number times 10%, you are going to have a really, really close figure on what it's actually going to cost. Again, maybe if there's a huge surprise that just comes out of nowhere, okay, there might be some additional. Maybe there's some major landscaping that needs to be done. Maybe there's a fuel tank that's buried on the property that you didn't know about, right? Those are kind of extenuating circumstances, but if you just figure on your square footage times your multiplier for A grade, B grade, or C grade, 30, 50, 80, and then you do that again times 10% and add that on to your total, you're going to be really, really close to where you're supposed to be on a renovation cost estimate. So does that help? Does that make sense to anybody? I mean, if you have questions, go ahead and throw it on the chat right now. We're going to wrap this up in a minute, but if I didn't relay this across to you clearly, then please let me know, because I want to make sure I'm bringing a ton of value to you guys. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because sometimes we get inside our head about what actually needs to be done to figure these things, to calculate these things, right? Sometimes we get this idea that, well, I've got to be a construction guy to know this. I got to go to estimator school to figure out how to figure. No, you don't. I know that it sounds crazy, but if you just use these multipliers, you can get really, really close, especially if you throw on, a little bit of a safety number there as a budget. You just kind of say, hey, I'm going to put this together, and then when I present my deal, or whether I'm still in negotiation with the seller, I can say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I know that you really want $400,000, but did you know that if we were to go through and actually do this, we actually have done these types of projects before. We know what these costs are. Based on what needs to happen to this property, there's about $64,000, $65,000 worth of work that we know needs to get done, and that's if we don't run into any surprises. And so what I like to do when I'm talking to the seller is I like to take that number. So why is it important to know the renovation costs? Well, obviously you want to know because it helps you with your or it helps you know if you got a deal or not. But I also like to take that number, and I like to use, when it comes to that, I like to use an exact number, right? $64,350, right? And I like to say, hey, listen, this is the number that represents the work that needs to be done on this property. And it doesn't matter if I buy it and do the work, or whether you do the work and then decide to sell it, the number is going to come out about the same. In fact, for Mr. and Mr. Seller, it might actually be more money for you, because I'm in the business. I'm in the real estate construction business. I actually have some connections where I can get some deals on properties or on this kind of work. And I can probably get people in there really quickly. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, do you have a contractor lined up? Have you actually had anybody give you an estimate of what it's going to take? Because everybody always wants to say, well, I know it needs some work, but I figure $15,000, $20,000 and this thing would be up to, Guys, you can go with that if you want to, or you can actually use these calculators. Use the square footage times these numbers, and then get a little bit of a budget, safety net on the back end, and you can actually take that number into your negotiation with your sellers and say, hey, now this thing, we know how this works. This is going to cost $64,350 for us to get to, for whether you do it or whether we do it, to get it up to where it's marketable. And of course, it's going to cost you, Mr. Seller, it's probably going to cost you even a little bit more than that, because of the fact that, frankly, this is kind of a one and done deal for you. I have connections with people. We do this stuff all the time. And so use that as a negotiating tactic, but also very important. Why is it important to know what the renovation costs are? Because if you are a wholesaler and you are getting properties under contract, and then you're putting those contracts out to your buyer's list, you want to make sure that you're giving your end buyer, the flipper or the buy and hold landlord, or maybe an end user buyer, you want to make sure that you're representing accurately as you can, right, what the realistic numbers are going to be on a property renovation. Because, listen, it not only is it helpful for the back end, but it makes you look good, right? So guys, we want to look good. We want to look like we know what we're doing when we're talking to end buyers. If we're building a buyer's list and you got like 400 people on your buyer's list, but you're throwing deals out there that have no senses, there's no contact with reality, And I hate to say this, but I see people do that. I see some people doing that even in this group, and I'm not getting on to you, but I see it all the time where wholesalers put these properties out there and you can just look through the pictures. I don't even have to go walk the property. I can look through the pictures they post and I'm going, this is not a $15,000 rehab. This is more of a B grade, maybe even a C grade renovation. I mean, there's a ton of work that has to be done in this place, right? And so now I know, like, okay, you know, realistically, this is what the number needs to be, but it also kind of puts something in my mind like this wholesaler doesn't really know what they're doing. And by the way, that's all of us at some point, right? Every one of us has been the person that didn't know what they were doing, right? And every one of us is, to a certain extent, in a place right now where we may not know what we're doing with certain things, right? So we're always in a transition of growth. But you want to make sure, especially if you're getting started, that you're putting out accurate numbers as best as you can. So I hope that helps you guys. If it does, if you appreciate it, make sure you give me some thumbs up. Make sure you make some comments. If it was valuable to you at all, then please pass this on to somebody else. Tag somebody else. Just say, hey, check this out if you're looking for how to figure out renovation costs. And then most of all, I really hope to see every one of you on the 25th. We have our next PDX REI meetup coming up on the 25th. Please pray that the air conditioner is fixed. Haven't gotten any word on that yet. But we're planning on August 25th. We're going to get the event page posted here so you guys can sign up. But I look forward to seeing you all there. And thank you guys for watching. Thanks for being a part of this. If you have any questions about anything that was mentioned on here, then please go through and just tag me. I think that Brendan may have asked a question. Brandon Hendrick may have asked a question. He says, how do you figure hard money, your realtor, your escrow, all those costs after the renovation has been done? We're going to talk about that soon. But for now, today's topic was obviously on just the renovation costs for our Tuesday talk today. We're going to talk about some of those things coming up soon. But Brandon, if you want to come out to our next meetup, I'd love to chat with you about it, and we could talk about that more succinctly. Hey, if you guys can, go check out Anthony Golden's flip. He's just finishing up. He's going to be doing an open house. Anthony, make sure you post that as some kind of an invite. Tyler, Pepe, Nandish, Bill, thank you all for being on here. Appreciate you guys. Look forward to seeing you soon, and thanks again for watching.